Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank God for another opportunity to meet today again. Our topic today is titled Figures of Speech. I'm sure most of you must have learned one or two things about figures of speech in your secondary school days. So, particularly in your literature classes. However, language is a continuum in the sense that language does not have an end. So, today's topic shall be figures of speech. What are figures of speech? What are their relevance in our everyday conversations? Why do we use them and how do we use them? Now, I'll begin with the definition. The definition may not be the best in the world, but it will prepare a ground on which our subsequent discussion today shall rest on. A figure of speech is a form of language used to address one's thought, idea, feeling in a manner that is beyond literal meaning. I repeat, a figure of speech is a form of language used to address one's thought, idea, feeling, opinion in a manner that is beyond literal meaning. There are three key aspects of these definitions that I want to buttress. The first one is we use a figure of speech to dress, to represent, to portray, to project, to express our thoughts or ideas to someone else, to an addressee perhaps, or to a group of people. So dressing your thoughts means that you are expressing your mind in a particular way. You are expressing your idea, you are expressing your feeling, your thoughts in a particular way. And what is that way? Beyond literal meaning. Now, let me explain what that phrase beyond literal meanings mean. We use language every day to communicate our mind, our intentions, our desires, our expectations without adding color to it. For example, I just carried my school bag and a roommate asked me, "Where are you going?" I reply, "Going to the campus." And the customer now asks, "But today is Saturday." And I reply, "To go and study." "Okay, can I join you?" "Yes, of course, you can join me." That is the literal everyday conversation. But that beyond the commonality and the casualty associated with the way we express ourselves, there are ways we can beautify our expressions to show improved level of competence, to show how intelligible we are and our level of our fluency in the language. Knowledge is an endless body. Just the same way language has no limit. A language has no limit. So a figure of speech in this comes in handy in this situation. You sometimes find yourself in situations that you just have to dress your feeling, your idea, your expression, beautify it, let me so to speak, to your listeners. So using a figurative language is a complete departure from the usual form of everyday expressions. So for instance, we use figure of speech to paint vividly a mental picture of a person. We can use it to paint a mental picture of an object or a situation. So there is this visual description of a person or a thing being referred to whenever we use a figure of speech. Oftentimes, using figurative language does not only ignite the reader's or the hearer's imagination, it also evokes some visual sense of perception. What do I mean? when you use figures of speech, you are not only using it to ignite, to bring alive the reader's sense of reasoning, you are also helping the person to have a visual sense of the description you have just portrayed. So as you are talking, the person is, as you are saying A, the person is seeing B, even though you understand what you are saying that is C. You have said A, the person interprets it in B form to achieve the what? The intended goal, which is C. And that is the power of figurative language, the use of figurative expressions. So it's a common device we use oftentimes in literature. Therefore, people oftentimes limit it to literary appreciations or literary discourse. No. A figure of speech is what you use on a daily basis. It helps us to show that indeed you are a competent speaker of the language. So we use figurative language not only within the confines of poetic, not only to achieve poetic effects, but we also use it to beautify our utterances. Apart from the beautification of our utterances, to also reveal our own level of our competence and depth of knowledge in the language. Every language has their own figures of speech. Whether Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Efik, Ibibio, and the rest, except you have not found out. But our focus today is figures of speech in the English language. So let's look at some examples from the English language. Number one is what we call a simile. What is a simile? Of course, you are not, I'm sure you are, this is not the first time you're coming across the term simile. A simile is simply used to express a striking comparison between two dissimilar objects or things. I don't want to go with the usual secondary school definition. A simile is the comparison of two things that have not the same manner with the use of like. No. At this point, we have to be more specific and focused in our definition so that the listeners or the hearers or my audience will have an understanding of what is a simile is. A simile is used to achieve a striking comparison between two different or dissimilar objects or an example. Let me give you an example. And often for you to, what helps you to achieve this comparison is the use of like or as. For example, oh, my love for you is as red as rose. We have the object rose. We have the abstract time love. These are two different entities, but the expressions reveal that what? Oh, my love for you is as red as rose. The love I have for you is as pure, as red as that particular flower, rose. Another example is, my Ghanaian friend is as black as charcoal. You cannot say someone is as black as charcoal because even if the person does, you are using the word as to create a connection between to create a connection between the art object, charcoal, and your friend who is human. So when you do that, you are using what is known as a simile. Or someone just looks at you after doing maybe a birthday party or a celebration, or you are attending a celebration with your beautiful attire and dress, and someone looks at you and say, oh, you are like a goddess in your new dress, in this new dress. And I say, oh, thank you. What the person has simply used is known as a simile. So most times, the use of like a goddess, as red as rose, or as black as charcoal, indicates a simile. The second one is metaphor. What is a metaphor? A metaphor is used to achieve what we call an implied meaning, an implied comparison between two different objects or things. Sometimes we use it to achieve a common association between two different terms. A metaphor is different from a simile in the sense that of a simile is direct with the use of like or as, but that of a metaphor is implied, which means it is indirect. Yet there is this comparison of two dissimilar items. Let me give you an example. Tunde is a pig. Tunde is a human being. Why the word pig connotes, indicates an animal. On what ground can you say a human being is also an animal? What you have done there is the use of figurative language. So Tunde, because the speaker maybe has came to that conclusion based on certain similar qualities between the human who is Tunde and the animal known as pig. Another one is the common expression, the Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd is also a good example of a metaphor, because the Lord, the Almighty God, and the shepherd. What we have there is an example of a metaphor. Two dissimilar things trying to come together to form an association. Another one is time is money. I'm sure we often hear this from time. We may not even know that it's an example of a metaphor. Because how can you say time that you cannot see an abstract time cannot become money? That's a tangible item. So time is money. So when you find yourself in a situation where two dissimilar objects or terms or things are associated in a way, in an implied form, it means that it's a metaphor. The third one is personification. As it is said, personify. It represents human things. It represents human attributes, so to speak. Human attributes. So a personification is used when an inanimate object is represented as human being, or possesses the qualities of human beings. Its generator is always disturbing the neighborhood. The generator said screamed suddenly and everybody ran for safety. Screamed suddenly is an indication that you have given the role of the action that can be performed by a human being to an object, a generator set. That's personification. My grandfather was carried away last night by the cold hands of death. My grandfather was carried away by the cold hands of death. Now, death cannot be seen. Yes, you have represented it as having human parts, ability to take somebody away. So instead of saying that your grandfather passed away last night, you're not saying the man has been carried away by the cold hands of. So what we have in these two instances is that there is the personification of inanimate beings, things that do not have the capacity to perform that do not have the capacity to perform human function are now made to do so in expression. So you address your thoughts in that way to be able to express your mind or your feelings. The fourth one, hyperbole. This is a deliberate exaggeration, so to speak, of statement for the purpose of emphasis. Simply put, it is a deliberate exaggeration of statement for the purpose of emphasis. For example, I can move a mountain for your sake. I can move a mountain for your sake. You might be asking me, is it possible? Yes, it's a figure of speech to show my level of commitment and love towards you. Whenever he speaks, his mouth odor can go as far as 100 kilometers. That's also an exaggeration for the purpose of what? Emphasis. I can eat 1,000,000 times in a day when I'm pregnant. A woman said that sometimes ago. I can eat 1,000,000 times in a day whenever I'm pregnant. Who is counting it? How do they arrive at that figure? That's to show you that it's an exaggeration for the purpose of emphasis. So that is that about hyperbole. So the next one without which is onomatopoeia. Now most of you often pronounce the word as onomatopoeia. No. The word is a Greek word, onomatopoeia, meaning that it's an act of using words to imitate the sounds associated with something or an object. It is an act of using words to imitate the sounds associated with something or an object. The car zoomed off. The car zoomed off suddenly. The NSAS protesters were shot at. Now the word kata and zoomed is having the effect of onomatopoeia. You can also have my boss banged the table 3 times angrily today. My boss banged the table 3 times angrily today. The word bang, the word zoom, and the word kata carry what? Onomatopoeia effect. Then synodoki, which is number 6, is a figure of speech in which a part is used to represent a whole, or a whole is used to represent a part. A part is used to represent a whole, or a whole as a part is used to represent a whole. I take that again if you didn't get that. A synodoki simply means using a part to represent a whole, or a whole to represent a part. Now, when you say my father works hard because he has 6 mouths to feed daily, what that simply means is that you are using the human part, mouth, to represent a complete human being. And that simply shows that you are talking about your father feeding 6 human beings daily. My father feeds 6 mouths daily. You can see how interesting the figurative language is when we use it to dress our thoughts. You can also say all hands should be on deck because this assignment must finish today. All hands should be on deck because the assignment or the task must be completed today. Now you are using hands to represent what? Human beings. So it's also another example of synodoki. So the next one is what we call oxymoron. Oxymoron. What is oxymoron? This is an act of placing side by side words with opposite meanings. Placing side by side words with opposite meanings. For example, she is feeling a gentle pain in her right leg. She is feeling a gentle pain in her right leg. Gentle and pain. You can use. Did you notice the contrast? That is a good example of oxymoron. The police officers were turned to wise fools by the suspects. The police officers were turned to wise fools by the suspects. We have the use of wise and fool placed side by side to show contrast. So what does that mean? It means that the suspect outsmarted the police officers, but the speaker has decided to use a figurative language to dress his or what his expression. The police officers were what? Instead of saying we are outsmarted by the suspect, they were turned to wise and fools. And she's feeling a gentle pain. How can you see something is painful and at the same time it's gentle? That's another example of oxymoron. In fact, a student said something sometimes ago. I think I can still recall that writing an examination is a necessary evil. Writing an examination is a necessary evil. Now, necessity and evil. Yeah, and it's making sense because whether you like it or not, for you to graduate, you must write an examination. But that's what qualifies you to be what? To be a graduate. That's what gives your institution an understanding that yes, indeed, and in truth, you have passed through the fireworks. So to you as a student is an evil, but to the institution is a necessity. So when the student said it, I just smiled. I said, what you have just used is what I in the field of language we refer to as an oxymoron. Writing an examination is a necessary evil. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the 8 points I raised earlier that I think we should get to know when we talk about figurative expressions, because these are expressions we need to use to show our level of competence, to beautify our utterances, and whenever we communicate. So we have to learn to use language beyond the literal meanings to achieve beyond what everybody use on the normal day. And that's to show that, in fact, not just when we speak only, even when we are writing, because that adds extra marks to you whenever maybe you're writing a letter or an essay, or you are in your place of work. Try and master these figures of speech, because it shows that you are a competent user of the language. Finally, before I go, let me just run through the 8 figures of speech we have talked about today. I said number 1, talked about a simile, talked about a metaphor, talked about personification, talked about hyperbole, we talked about synecdoche, we talked about oxymoron, and we talked about we also talked about hyperbole. Okay, that's the 6 of them. Okay, then the next one, or finally, let me add this one: euphemism. I'm sure you have heard about the expression euphemism. Yes, this is a figure of speech in which pleasant or less offensive terms are used to describe an unpleasant situation. Where you use pleasant or less offensive terms to communicate an unpleasant or an offensive situation. They are mild expressions. Rather than being blunt, some of us have an indirect way of communicating our anger or our disappointment, okay, or our expectations, rather than being blunt. What such people do is use a figure of speech known as euphemism. Let me give you an example. He has gone to be with his maker. How is your dad? Is he back now from the hospital? Yes, sir. Maybe you're not aware, or you have not been told. He has gone to be with his maker. I'm sure the person will decode immediately, except the person is not a speaker of the language. Or sometimes you feel pressed. Instead of saying, I want to go and poo-poo, you are now holding your bum. You are holding your bum. You are saying, I'm pressed. No. Your level of language use should show finance and advancement, because you are not in a higher institution. I want to use the ladies. How can I use the ladies? Isn't it? So, a common one in Nigeria now, the restroom. So, the word restroom, the word ladies join his maker and indicate euphemism, in which you are trying to use a mild expression to lessen the effect of an offensive term. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to stop at this point. So, whatever questions you have, just put it in the comment section. I will attend to the question, and you can also share and subscribe to my channel so that you'll be updated from time to time. Thank you for listening.